involved in this project with, or in this panel with Brent and Bob by way of a different but complementary project, which has really gotten carried forward, and I think I'm going to do something bigger with it after this. Although I'm not sure how. I think that's still growing. So what I promised to do today is to take up the question of value, specifically the valuing of masculine movement over feminine movement in modern Western culture. But rather than pursuing it along the traditional adversarial lines of thought which pervade feminist discourse most of the time, I'm going to draw on the ideas of Iris Young and Simone de Beauvoir and propose a dialogal phenomenological alternative. What I'm really proposing is that an attitude of benevolent, even radical curiosity accompanied by open dialogue has the potential to make the mysterious bonds of gender oppression and sexism fall away, leaving us transformed. Let's see. So I don't know how familiar everyone is with Iris Young or Simone de Beauvoir, so I'm just going to sort of go forward with the assumption that you're familiar enough, but maybe not totally familiar. So I first read Iris Young's Throwing Like a Girl about 2 years ago, and I was surprised by the strength of my mostly negative reaction. It took several days of conversation with peers before I realized that most of what I was objecting to was the privileging of one way of moving over another. Young's essay, which was originally published in 1980, was a feminist response to Erwin Strauss's Upright Posture, which maybe more people have read. Young describes her essay as an attempt to theorize the effects of feminine socialization and sexual objectification on a woman's world-making movements, describing us as unable to be free in movement. I definitely agree that a feminist response to Strauss is important because it is a very phallic piece. And it needed to be critiqued. But I read in Young's response an underlying implication that moving in a decisive, goal-oriented way is the right way to move. It is a more valuable way to move. And that it is then, she juxtaposes it against this more contained, hesitant way of moving as the wrong way to move. I don't think she does it on purpose. I don't think she knew she was doing it. But it definitely was problematic for me. I think it's important to remember that there are many ways to move. It's not that simple. One example is just one, or two, actually. There's the elegant lady on the beach. She sits there soaking up the sun before she wades into the water and takes her time, getting adjusted to the temperature before finally taking the plunge. And here actually I have an image of my mother and other people, you can sort of see them. And then, again, in stark contrast, there's a herd of children who go hurtling in as fast as they can get their shirts and shoes off. There are as many ways to move as there are people in the world, I think. What I find central to Young's argument, though it's not emphasized, is that it is not an issue of how you move as a man or woman. It is a question of how you feel in your movement. It seems to me that there are an infinite variety of ways to move authentically. And though it might be possible to arrange these styles on a spectrum from characteristically masculine to characteristically feminine, by narrating Throwing Like a Girl as a story of feminine oppression, Iris Young portrays inhibition and restriction of movement as a male-female problem when in fact it is a human problem, like so many other narrations that are told in binary terms. This isn't to say that there aren't points of resonance for me in Young's essay and in other traditional feminist literature. And it's important to acknowledge that she did come back to this 20 years later, which a lot of people don't know if you're interested in her work. She wrote Throwing Like a Girl 20 years later. Her commentary is insightful, it's evocative. It doesn't address all my concerns with her original piece, although it does address some. She points out that the social environment for women has changed. since her adolescence. And she does this interesting move. Rather than defending the relevance of her paper, she provides a really compelling critique of the philosophical premise for Throwing Like a Girl, which relies on what she calls the contradictory Beauvoirian framework, which, if you're familiar with Simone de Beauvoir, relies on the immanence transcendence dichotomy, which, even if you love it, is problematic. So for Beauvoir, human life is seen as an interplay between immanence and transcendence.